The real rate of inflation is more difficult to calculate than what it seems. The Fed even has trouble doing it. They keep dropping things off of it. I guess it's just easier that way. Just leave off the most important factors and you won't have much to count and keep a tally of. What a brilliant plan. Well, you came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we're going to look at inflation. There are different ways to look at inflation. Let's get into those right now. Beginning with this, the CPI, Consumer Price Index, often seen as the measure of inflation. When you talk about inflation rates, you're looking at the CPI. Now, while I don't agree with the CPI, that's what it is. This is what the raise that you haven't been getting year over year is measured upon. It's the 40-year trend line of the CPI being remarkably stable. So you could see that year over year, this has been going up, and that's in line with your food, with your energy, with everything that's important as far as I'm concerned. And they rise year over year. Your wages, so if this is the CPI and your wages are like this. So as time goes on, more of a chasm forms in between these two. You're not allowed to talk about that because as soon as you hit the nail on the head, the warning signs start going off and people start getting upset. That's just the way it is. It's very clear that it's not a silly notion. Okay, look at this. Personal consumption expenditures, PCE, is the Federal Reserve's favored measure of core inflation. Okay, remember I said core inflation. Whenever you see the Federal Reserve talking in one of their meetings, they're always talking about inflation rates and they're referring to core inflation. Now, if you can get rid of food and energy prices from your ridiculous calculations, you end up with some of this garbage. There's no way that this makes any sense. We're going to calculate inflation, but we're not going to include the two most important things. It's just ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous to see something like this. I don't care what direction it heads. If you're not going to include those, it's simply irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Okay? But that's what the market goes by. So when they say, oh, we need to get to 2% inflation, that's our goal, etc., they're talking about core inflation, and it's fake. Now, we can look at more accurate statistics. Consumer inflation official versus shadow stats, 1980 based. So there's a 1990 and there's a 1980 base, but we'll look at the 1980. And what you can see that today, approximately at 10%. Now, for each individual, this number may vary. It may not be 10%. It might be 5%. It might be 7%. It depends on what you buy, how many people are in your family, and where you live. And there's so many factors which determine your rate of inflation that you're experiencing. However, the rate that they're giving us, not true. It is just not true. I don't know of anybody who can say that their food, energy, rent, housing, everything is going down or barely staying at the same level. It doesn't happen too often, and if it does, it seems to be for short periods of time, historically speaking. So what we need to understand is that inflation is getting worse. Why? Because the true measure of inflation, that is how many dollars are printed, the expansion of the currency supply, is on its way up. And as a result, you see prices rising nominally. Switching gears, healthcare spending has grown much faster than the rest of the economy in recent decades. Look at this, 818%. Obamacare is destroying, absolutely destroying, what's going on with people's finances. But of course, it makes the GDP rise. So you can throw the GDP in here. Looking at this, yes, it's only 168%, but part of that GDP is the expenditures on things like Obamacare, and they've been rising and rising. So surely that's going to contribute to the GDP. If that wasn't the case, you would see it down further. Look at wages, embarrassingly, barely moving upward. And then you have the real economy versus the asset prices. And I've covered this before, just wanted to quickly mention it for those who haven't seen this. You can see the different stock markets around the world. Everything is up, up, up. At the same time, you have you have the real economy basically nowhere to be found in comparison. And these, once again, a chasm forming in between the two. The real economy is dead. The fake quantitative easing economy is expanding, and nobody cares if they're invested in the stock market. They won't know when to sell, but that's okay because the party is on right now. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. If you hated this video, give me a thumbs down. Have an opinion. That's all. If you found the video informative, I know you will find my books, The Money GPS and my new release, Global Economic Collapse, even more informative. You can flip through these books at Amazon. Links are in the description below. Take care.